My guest in the studio, the president of the Golden Party Zambia, Mr. Jackson Silavwe, will be able to answer some of the questions you might have. We will be opening the phone lines a little later after we have a few words with Mr. Silavwe.
Yes.
Now, this is an exciting year, I must say,
Yes, it
especially
is.
for politicians
Yes, yes.
and the general citizenry. We've seen things happening in the last year. We saw the voter registration, we saw NRC collection of cards, people registering to get the different ages and stages, people who are going to 10. There's been a lot of contentious issues surrounding those two issues. What is your take on what transpired to those two issues?
Our take has been very consistent from the time that even before we had the presidential summit under the ECZ that was widely covered. For us, at the beginning of the year of 2020, we asked a question that what kind of ECZ do you anticipate to have going in the 2021 general elections in August? And we said that we need to have an ECZ, for example, number one, that is able to generate consensus. Why did we say that? It's because when you look at the current political landscape, it is completely charged. Lives have been lost, which is not supposed to be the case. I always say this, and I want to say it very clearly. Regardless of your party affiliation, regardless of the party that you belong to, whether you belong to the Patriotic Front, you belong to the UPND, you belong to GPZ, you belong to PEP, you belong to NDC, you belong to NCP, there is no condition in our country for you to lose your life just because of politics. And as the leaders, we must be able to preserve the lives of the Zambian people. The lives of the Zambian people should be sacred to us. It should be important, regardless of any party affiliation. And we've seen people lose their lives in the name of politics. Recently, we saw a prosecutor innocently shot in the head. Investigations are still underway. We saw UPND supporters shot in the head as well, and they've lost their lives. They've lost their lives. And this is the atmosphere that we're living in at the moment as a country. It is politically charged. So if you are a leader at any level and you have an influence to speak to this situation, you must be sensitive to that kind of environment, that your words and your actions can be misread and it would lead into a crisis of some sort. And for us as the party, as GPZ, we called on an ECZ that is supposed to be able to generate consensus. Unfortunately, the ECZ have not been able to do that. You have seen the ECZ that, for lack of a better term, that is bulldozing its way to the 2021 general elections. You are dealing with an emperor that has left his subjects behind. You are dealing with an emperor that is stopped his ears from listening to the various stakeholders when they put up concerns. You are dealing with an ECZ that is not responsive to what the people of Zambia are talking through various stakeholders. You are dealing with an ECZ that has been sued by various stakeholders in the courts of law so that they can be able to listen. I want to say this, and I want to say it very clear. There is no need for the ECZ to be sued in the courts of law. All they need to do is to listen. All they need to do is to make sure that consensus is generated amongst the stakeholders. That is the kind of ECZ that we are looking for. That is the kind of ECZ. That is the kind of ECZ that this country is looking for. An ECZ that listens to its stakeholders. Simple as that.
Okay.
An ECZ that listens to its stakeholders. I want to say this, and I want to say it very clear. We are in an election year, and we must be able to tell the truth. The Zambian people have got a lot of mistrust in the politicians. And if you are going to deal with the Zambian people, you need to tell them the truth. There has never been consensus generated, for example, on the implementation. And I want to be very careful because somebody out there may not quote me properly. On the implementation of the prisoners' right to vote. There was no consensus generated on the online pre-registration of voters. There was no consensus on the duration of the registration of voters. There was no consensus. What you had is the process that took away the dignity of the Zambian people. And I said this in one of my statements. If you are going to have a national process that takes away the dignity of the Zambian people, where the Zambian people are subjected to 1964 kind of, or 1963 kind of setup of governance, where you need to line up, where people got soft, deadlocked, where people did not know what was happening, I can tell you that is a process that is setting up the country for a crisis, and we need to make sure that we run away from that. We have never generated consensus on the issue of nomination fees. The ECZ, I was representing almost about 40 political parties in the meeting where we are talking about the nomination fees. We were given a view that we were talking with the ECZ. It was supposed to be a back and forth. As you are talking to me and I'm responding to your questions, you must be able to listen to what I'm talking about. Because if we miss that, then there's going to be miscommunication in the studio. And before long, the listeners will just hear, boom, 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 we are fighting. Because we are not communicating. The ECZ were of the view that they were listening to us. When we told them that the nomination fees that they had proposed was too high. Even the last interaction we had with them, we still told them. We had the UPND in that meeting who were representing themselves. I was representing the rest of the political parties, including the Patriotic Front. I was representing the part nominated by the political parties. We had representatives from a youth organization. We had a representative from the women's lobby. We had representatives from the persons living with disabilities. None of those stakeholders, including us, the political parties, agreed to the proposed nomination fees. In fact, the UPND made a proposal which I thought was going to be common ground, that we should not increase the nomination fees. The least we could do was to maintain the nomination fees of 2016, carrying them over to 2021. What did we see from the ECZ? They released a communique thanking us and saying that they had consulted us and these are the nomination fees. But then you saw what happened at the presidential summit, that stakeholders rose up again and said, but we have never sorted out this issue. And this is another issue that is a point of contention going into the 2021 general election. And this is what I'm saying, that it is not too late for the ECZ to call us and generate some kind of consensus. If the ECZ do not know how to generate consensus, they must consult us. We have a little bit of experience dealing with political parties and stakeholders to come to some sort of an arrangement that may not be a win for all, but at least it could be a win for the majority.
Right. And now the pandemic, still talking about the issuance of national registration cards. And of course, there was recently there was an extension to the voter registration for a period of days. And in the past few days, a lot of stakeholders have been trying rigorously to get the ECZ to do something about the situation, because a lot of citizens have been differentialized in the reason that there has been COVID from March. Since COVID, people could not move.
Exactly.
They were asked to stay in the house, and you know, people have personal choices, and they've got some have underlying situations, illness, health, and they were not able to get their voters cards, and
that is correct.
Several stakeholders have been calling on the ECZ. Has there been dialogue with political parties and the ECZ again to see if there could be a way to get people who have not been able to get their voters registration, voters cards? I beg your pardon.
I want to make it very clear that, like I said in my preamble, delving into the issues that we're looking at today, there hasn't been that kind of a discussion with the ECZ. I want to say this, that the ECZ is setting a very dangerous precedence in terms of the way they are conducting themselves. The ECZ needs to be brought back to order, no matter how you look at it. And I know that in this country we have gotten into the drive just because it favors the party you belong to. So you must be able to see evil in the others. That should not be the case. And I believe that we are here not because of vested interest, but because we love this country. That we are patriotic enough to step out on the platform and say, here we are. Can you consider us for the leadership of this country? Because we love this country. And I must say that that should apply also the same to President Edgar Lungu. That should apply to President Hakainde Hichilema. It should apply to Honorable Kambwili. It should apply to Mr. Sean Tembo. It should apply to every person worth his salt and calling himself or herself an opposition political party, opposition leader. That should be the best mark of everything. Now, when you look at the ECZ, they are not consulting at all. And when they call you, they just want to inform you of what they have done, of the decision that they have taken. Now, this is not
Is it a decision?
primary.
Is it a decision by the ECZ or is it an instruction from somewhere?
It is. You can call it that, and that's what is making the stakeholders extremely jittery. That then, if you are going to proceed in that manner, away from what has been always been the norm of how things should be done, then where are you getting the powers to do that? And that is the question we are posing to the ECZ, because you must have the confidence. The confidence levels among the stakeholders in the ECZ are very low. And why is it so? The ECZ have created this mess. And they must be able to generate some form of confidence before we approach the 2021 general election. Mm-hmm. As we are going into a boxing fight, I'm a lover of rugby. I played rugby at DK. As you are going into a rugby match, you must be confident that the referee is unbiased. You must be confident that the referee is not going to give advantage to only one play. And that is not the feeling amongst the general population right now. That is not the feeling amongst the majority stakeholders at the moment. We have the view that the ECZ is not listening to us. And the question that begs to be answered is that if the ECZ is not listening to stakeholders that are directly involved in an election, a general election, then who are they listening to? That is the question. We called for an extension. Mm-hmm. And now there is a petition. I'm very aware. There's a petition of an organization, because they called me, that there should be a signing so that that letter can be taken to the ECZ to find a way to accommodate the people that never got to register as voters. Mm-hmm. But we were telling the ECZ from inception that 30 days was not enough. And the 4 days, for me, it was a mockery. I called it a joke. That is a joke. A national process you extend it by, is it 4 days or 3.5 days? Mm-hmm. Whatever you may call it a joke. It's important that we begin to take the people's business in this country serious. The people's business is characterized at the moment. And when I talk about the people's business, I'm talking about issues that affect the people. Right now, it is characterized by bulldozing. It is characterized by insults. It is characterized by name-calling. It is characterized by dishonesty. It is characterized by corruption. We need to be serious. If this country is going to attain meaningful levels of development, if this country is going to be a developed country, as the GPZ manifesto and vision espouses, if this country is going to lift millions of Zambians out of poverty, if we are going to give employment and jobs to millions of Zambians who are wallowing in poverty. We've got graduates right now in our country who have gotten a degree, who have gotten a diploma, a certificate, and they cannot find a job. If we are going to get to a level to absorb such kind of unemployment in our country, we need to be serious with the people's business.